Welcome to Project Highrise over at the Edge of Casual. I am your host Verso with a sort of a follow-up to my initial knee-jerk impressions for this game. So, I'm not sure what you'd call this, second impressions, like first impressions, I'm not sure. How many levels of impressions can you go through before they're no longer impressions but fully formed thoughts? I guess we'll find out. Anyway, last time I provided a very general overview of the basic mechanics and the challenges to be found therein, and since then I've been playing quite a bit more of the game to the point that I feel like I'm at the very least kind of knocking on the door to the mid-game, though I've been intentionally dithering about when I'm going to enter that door. So I should say that I really like Project Highrise. I came into it without any preconceived notions about what to expect, and it has surprised me at nearly every turn by causing me to give at least some thought, and sometimes quite a lot of thought, to nearly every decision that I've had to make. Though I am turning a relatively tidy profit at this point in the game, it isn't really so much that I feel completely secure. And in truth, I'm feeling a little bit paralyzed at the moment because it feels like I'm sitting on a kind of a tipping point where things can either go very well for me or very badly. What you'll notice straight off is that I'm still working primarily with studios and one-bedroom apartments. I've unlocked some of the balcony apartments, two bedrooms, duplexes, etc., but honestly, I just don't know if I ever want to build any of these. So yes, the two bedrooms do pay a lot more in rent, but they also require a lot more, like handyman, a laundromat, home cleaning services. It's going to require careful planning to ensure that I can support those requirements. So Project Highrise, it really isn't a game in which you can expand in a piecemeal way, I've found, and just eat the cost of any inefficiencies until you get things fully built out. There's a bit of an upfront cost, first of all, to providing new services, so you need to make sure that you have money in the bank. And then on top of that, you need to make sure that any additional rent intake is covering the daily cost of those services straight away. As far as offices go, though I've unlocked the medium office spaces, I feel like I'll continue muddling about with the small offices for a while. I haven't even begun attempting to invite in the industries with a longer laundry list of requirements, like real estate, for example, which requires you to purchase very expensive artwork and place it near their offices, or any of the industries that require things like commercial printing services, a wider variety of restaurants, cable connections, janitorial services, parking spaces, and so on. When I think about having to provide these things at some point, my mind kind of boggles a bit, and I imagine that when that happens, I'll probably decide to just start a new game with a better plan this time. Okay, so just to clear something up, the per day profit shown to the player on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen reflects only fixed costs. It's rent income, which for me is around $11,000 versus utilities, services, and infrastructure costs, which is around $8,500. In other words, it doesn't take into account ancillary expenses like maintenance, which is shown as renovation on your budget details, and construction. So the cost of maintenance in particular, and I mentioned this last time as well, can get pretty steep, and it can easily eat up half of your daily profit, if not more. And it's a bit irritating, if I'm being honest, because grime is sort of out of control at this stage in the game, and you have to really keep on top of this or your residents get disgruntled real fast. So this leads to the topic of consultants, I think, which I didn't mention last time. And consultants come in four flavors: aesthetics, politics, operations, and tourism. So tourism is related to hotels, and they're not important to my current game. I'm not going to talk about those. But anyway, each of these consultants requires an office in your building if you intend to utilize their services. And if you want to take a peek at what they can do for you, you can do so by clicking on your current influence amount, which is indicated by the purple handshake icon on your toolbar, and they all have various staged unlocks that can be purchased relatively inexpensively with your influence points. And influence, by the way, is just something that accrues for having happy tenants, I believe, which is not too difficult at this stage, so I generally have a surplus of those. So what you see here is that through the operations consultant, you can unlock optimized maintenance, and you might expect that this would lower the cost of renovations or make renovations last longer before they get all grimy again or something like that, but that's not the case. What it does do is provide access to an upgraded maintenance office that allows you to automate maintenance tasks, but obviously this is going to cost you more, and it basically just cuts down on some of the busy work for the player, and it still doesn't solve the root problem of grime becoming a real drag at this population level, to the point that your maintenance workers are at the verge of being unable to keep up with the task. So to get at the root problem, we need to look at custodial staff, which unlocked at some prestige level along the way, I'm not sure which. Custodians, however, they have a not insignificant daily upkeep cost of $500, and besides that, They can only effectively cover 3 floors because they need a broom closet, and those are only good for the floor on which you place them. And then beyond that, we're at the point where queues to use the elevators are starting to get long, and you begin to start seeing little discontented faces occasionally. And that's, of course, when the elevator isn't broken down entirely. So you probably want to look into a second elevator, or potentially exclusive elevators that don't have to start on the first floor, which is another thing unlocked through the operations consultant. And anyway, with all that going on, a lot of the stores and restaurants still struggle with profitability, regardless of all the foot traffic you've now got going on, and I see no rhyme or reason really to why some places do so much better business than others. So for example, my tenants were starting to complain about the lines at the tempura kiosk, which was doing huge business every day, so I figured, okay, well let's just build another lunch place, and I put this noodles place right next door, which in retrospect maybe that didn't make a ton of sense, but instead of evenly distributing the traffic, everybody started going to the noodles place, and now this tempura restaurant has hardly any customers, so go figure. And similarly, why does this coffee place have 32 regular customers when the pub just next door, which serves dinner, has only ever had 1 regular customer? So still, so many questions about the businesses, and I feel like if there's one weakness in the game, it's that this is not transparent at all to the player. So my point, I guess, is that long after you've kind of figured out the trick to simply balancing the books, in the strictest sense of ensuring that rent is greater than or equal to the cost of services required by the tenants, there still remains a ton of very complex decisions to make, both in the interests of daily upkeep, as well as when sitting on the fence with even minor expansions. And I should say that this is at the medium difficulty setting. The game has beginner, easy, medium, and hard settings. But at the end of the day, though it may sound like my commentary has been largely frustrations, I actually feel like these frustrations are a good thing in a management game, because there's nothing about them that simply feels like a cheap mechanic meant to keep you down. Project Highrise is merely a game that asks you to earn your progress at every step of the way, with nothing given to you on a silver platter, and I think we should reward that sort of gameplay, so that's why we're here talking about this. That's why you're listening to this, hopefully. But enough talk, I suppose. I'm really interested in any questions that others might have, so feel free to share them below. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and keep it casual.